Tensions rise as both Iran and the US tussle to tighten their grip on the Strait of Hormuz. The maritime channel responsible to transit 20% of oil and 1/5 of gas to the world has come to a standstill ever since the inception of the US and Israel strikes on Iran. President Trump asked US citizens to brace for rising gasoline prices for a while. Trump said he's not in a rush for peace with Iran as he wants Iran to give up on nuclear ambitions completely. As more than 2,000 ships are stuck in the Strait of Hormuz, the disruptions in oil supplies have caused havoc on industrialists who depend on petrochemicals to manufacture a myriad of products. As per oil exports, if oil prices hold above $90 per barrel for more than 30 days, consumers might end up paying excessively for food, traveling, footwear, cosmetics, hardware, and medical equipment. As per American Airlines, the rising cost of jet fuel will cost the carrier another $4 billion this year. One of the major passenger airlines in the world, it states that the rising US-Iran war over Hormuz has created losses in the year 2026. It comes as a shock to the airline business giant as the carrier had announced record revenue of around $13 billion in the first quarter of 2026. Since the beginning of the Iran war in February 2026, the airport fuel cost has surged by twofold. The head of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, warned airlines on Thursday that Europe would face disrupted flights if it fails to get sufficient new supplies from the US and Nigeria. The global watchdog head had already said that Europe is left with 6 weeks of jet fuel. While the airlines look to pass the rising cost of fuel to the consumers, it might backfire as consumer spending changes due to higher traveling costs. As per some recent reports, a few airlines globally have started to charge fuel surcharges, especially for long-haul flights. On Thursday, April 23rd, President Trump asked the citizens to brace for higher gas prices as the US continues to implement a naval blockade at Hormuz. Trump clarified that he is in no rush to make a peace deal with Iran as the US won't stop unless Iran gives up on nuclear ambitions. Gas prices have surged more than 30% since the US-Iran war began in February. As per CNBC's latest All-America Economic Survey, Americans have cut spending due to pain at the pump. It is worth noting that the decrease in spending will trickle down to small-scale industries, causing business losses or closures that would ultimately hurt buyers and families' savings. With 30% of the fertilizers stuck at the Strait of Hormuz, farmers are facing global supply shortages. Even though the US has a strong domestic fertilizer supply, the US relies heavily on imports of certain fertilizers, especially potash. US farmers say that with the spring season advancing, most of them would fall short of fertilizer supply. The American Farm Bureau president said that the skyrocketing cost of fuel and fertilizer is creating more economic hardships for farmers who have already endured years of losses. Without the necessary fertilizers, they are bound to face lower yields, leading to supply shortages and ultimately higher costs for consumers. The Farm Bureau survey reports that almost 70% of farmers are struggling to buy sufficient fertilizers due to higher prices. The food prices will be further complicated by rising diesel prices that would affect the transportation chain of raw materials and agricultural products, leading to higher buying costs for consumers. The US-Iran war has not just choked crude oil and gas supply to the world, but the effects of it are cascading down to a wide range of products that are manufactured by petrochemicals. According to the US Department of Energy, The petrochemicals derived from oil go into the production of at least 6,000 products. From shoes, cosmetics, sports equipment, and computer hardware to plastic items, the refined oil is a major foundational building material. For example, according to a report published by Footwear Distributors and Retailers of America, roughly 70% of the materials in synthetic shoes are petrochemical based, and 30% of the costs for those materials are directly tied to oil price rate swings. This could translate into a 1.5% to 3% increase in the price shoppers pay for a pair of shoes by late summer and the fall. The Hormuz blockade is also creating a shortage of supply of helium and aluminium, key materials used in products such as semiconductor chips and medical equipment. This cost is expected to rise further as the trucks and other shipping modes will have to pay for the rising prices of diesel.